Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode, another recording, another morsel of madness from yours truly, Mediafile. And I know you perhaps noticed, but I decided to name the channel something proper, something that makes absolute sense in every sense of the word. Our channel is now called Myth and Magics, or Myths and Magic, because that's simply what we're going to talk about. Now, this channel typically is a theoretical channel. I will go into the theories of the types of magics, the type of creatures that live within worlds of magic or worlds without magic. And then I'm going to properly divulge my mind, my wisdom, my knowledge onto all of you. So I hope all of you are going to enjoy this very much. So I surely hope the setup is all right. I want something a bit more, simpler, a bit more humble. But it is simply what I am trying to come up with at the moment. I hope all of you can pretty much see where the detail, although you probably can't, because honestly, cameras these days, scribes, whatever you want to call them, they're not at the most efficient level. The lighting I thought is quite ambient, quite nice actually, but unfortunately it does not, do me justice. It simply does not. So I'm simply here trying to figure out, trying to analyze the situations in my mind, in my life, so I can properly dissect them, simplify them for all of your viewing pleasures and needs. Okay, so first off, a lot of things are not happening, as is, the normal occurrence as well. Everyone's talking about the gas prices. I say just use flu powder. Use your glyphs. Use your bicycles, use whatever you need to do to conserve the gasoline. If you're going to work, then at least you have some sort of income to help compensate the amount you have to pay for fuel. But if you do not, you have to simply, gamble as to whether, going to a shop down the street's worth the extra gas just to get a bite to eat. However, I am simply going through that sort of thing right now at the moment, like everyone else is. But back home, there's a lot of things that are happening back home, however. The college is going, the school or the academy that we opened up recently for our hybrids and for everyone else. It's actually going rather well. We have a few new teachers that are coming in. They sort of believe in what we are doing, but there is still some pushback by the more people that are a lot more on the, I say, conservative side. The people that, seek to, just like maintain traditions, maintain things as they've always been. Safe, secure, and acceptable. However, we have a lot of students here, some of them no fault of their own, were subject to criminal acts that have caused them to become chimeric in their nature. And so they're pretty much hybrids now. That's sort of what we call it, although I can imagine it's becoming a derogatory term somewhat. We have things like, mud blood, blood that is impure, blood that is dirty, all the things you can come up with. And yes, I know it's a title, it's a special term from a movie. We've seen the movies, Harry Potter, but I'm trying to tell you that this is real shit. So, yes, they go through that issue all the time. And I'm trying, as a professor, someone who helps start the program, to sort of, ameliorate these sort of things and to alleviate the amount of pressure and burdens that these students have. So it is not typically easy, but it is something that I am working towards in order to, promote a healthy educational life for my students. Has there been fights? Yes, unfortunately. There's been a few bullying aspects of that as well. And unfortunately, given the fact that hybrids are sort of, restricted from engaging certain students because of the physical capabilities, I was the one that said, well, technically speaking, the other students are also mages. That should make them somewhat resistant to some of these acts and not normal people, or the mundane, as we call them. So, I say they should make it even. I said if any student lays a hand on any student, regardless of who they are going to get time off with work to do that they're expected to complete by the time they come back. We're not just going to award you with time off for getting into trouble. We're going to make you work for it, so you think twice next time. But it is a process. It is something that we are studying, that we are learning every day, that we are perfecting in our craft. So that is partially why I've been a bit busy, haven't been uploading as many videos lately. And oh my God, my hair. And I know it is a crime. There's a lot of things happening right now in my realm. So I'm just trying to get those things sorted out. Being a teacher or a professor can be extremely difficult. And it is incredibly draining and time consuming. I never thought it was, but I had somewhat of an idea. This is why I never wanted to be in the educational pursuit. However, the need was great. No one was willing, and the system was idiotic. The kind of people they had in charge of these programs had no common sense. They were stupid. I didn't understand their whole vision, or I don't know, the damage. I don't know what the bloody hell the damage was. So there's that shithole. The entire thing. But the school itself, it's going all right. We have classes. They are going on swimmingly, thankfully. We do have courses where the hybrids separated with their own kind, just so they can get better chance of themselves. And then if they feel comfortable and, and with, of course, supervision, we allow them to take classes with the other mages, with the other mage students. We've sort of been avoiding that now only because we've had a few instances in the past. It is something awkward to look at. You'd think seeing a hybrids would be normal from where I come from, but they're not. Hybrids were deemed criminal or illegal acts because they involve some sort of strange experimentation with the blood, with the DNA, with sort of perverse types of magic, in order to, do those sort of acts. And unfortunately, sometimes these students, they get curious and they inflict it upon themselves or others without being able to reverse it. Yes, you have mages who are those known as animagus, or perhaps certain mages who are affluent in being able to transform parts of the body into animal parts, but they can turn back willingly. This in itself is a bit of a mid-ground. We try to sort of police, or sort of, I don't, but the Alchemical Society seems to sort of police these sort of things. So that is what they are working on. And frankly, I don't really think it's a huge problem, but it is something that they are working through. And I have to just let them be. And I'm struggling very much with this whole sort of thing. I notice that people here, hello audience, how are you? I understand that you're going through a lot of things right now, but trust me, other worlds are going through other things as well. Yes, so there's that going on. And I know I've rambled on an exceedingly an exceedent amount in this sort of acts and in this sort of, explanation as to what happened. But I thought, a somewhat thorough explanation as to why I haven't been uploading as often, why I haven't been whatever. Side note, things like inspiration or things like life just gets in the way. These sort of things happen. But I encourage all of you to sort of find it. Whatever it is that gives you happiness, the drive, focus on that. Because those things are ultimately important, especially for one's well-being and for their, financial support. So it's a lot of things that we are working on. So, without further more delay, I will be diving into the subject of today's video. Now, what I'm going to bring up may be a bit controversial and may make some of you upset depending on your, I believe, inclinations towards the spirit realm, things of that nature. I know I talk somewhat of a great deal about it. I am a person that sort of, tries to commune, or if not, tries to understand the spirits a certain way. The study, the theory, the energies, all of those things are important for my craft, for who I am as a person, for a practitioner, I guess sorcerer, a person who tries to study the source or see where it comes from, its applications in everyday life, or the theory thereof. So that's pretty much what I'm doing. But I'm going to be talking about the beings we know as gods. Yes, you already have your asses clenched. Your holes are puckered. No one likes to talk about these sort of subjects as often. And typically when they hear a person of, my image, my appearance, my, knowledge on certain matters, they really take it very lightly. And I, of course, being this a somewhat educational / entertainment channel, I want all of you to realize that what I say in certain aspects, you're free to absorb if you choose to. But if what I say makes sense and it causes you to think a bit more, then think even more, okay? Nothing is more dangerous than an ignorant mind, okay? To say ignorant is bliss is a dreadful statement, because it sort of encourages people to not learn more than what they are capable, or to not learn more of what is possible than as to what is available to them. To say that ignorance is bliss is sort of saying, be happy with your, regular state of mind, with your simplicity. I prefer people that are more complex, that are deeper. There's a lot of things you can understand. And so some people say that the danger to learning a lot more is the fact that you can't handle it. But the more you know, the more you understand, and the more you're able to sort of handle yourself and process these sort of emotions and feelings, but they take time, you know? But these sort of things do happen. So, I will going to speak to you about the image, the belief, and I believe the pathology, even though I'm not sure if I'm getting that correctly, of God or gods. So there's a lot of different thoughts about a certain subject. A lot of different circles say they have different belief systems, different, I believe, beliefs in general about the deities we call gods. And although I believe in a previous video, I can't recall which one, because I titled them very strangely and it is a bit vague. But I do speak about spirits, their importance, and I believe their relevance. As I believe I may have discussed a hierarchy of some kind when referencing things like gods or angels, for example. What I want you to leave with is that, even though there's no inherent carnal proof of these beings actually existing, energy itself does exist. And if you, I believe, heard or tuned into my episode last time when I was speaking about energy, things like batteries, how the soul itself or the spirit itself is a form of battery, how it sort of channels energy from where it comes from. And when the energy is gone from the battery, it simply leaves its vessel to seek another source of energy, which I would then attribute the resting places or the hubs of these souls as being things like heaven, nirvana, Valhalla, things of that similar nature. But, so I'm going to get into it, okay? So I believe the first question you should ask yourself, or ask anyone, with respect to this subject, and would be as to whether or not they believe that such a being can exist and is conceivable. And so the issue is that a lot of us, we see a lot of things, hear a lot of things that sort of can either confirm or deny what we already have thought about. But if you are truly open-minded, and if you are truly able to allow yourself either to be wrong or, to be proven right, so now if you're able to entertain the thought that such a being can and may not exist, then we can have a proper discussion and conversation about this issue. So upon living on this earth for roughly, 300 years, I've witnessed a lot of cultures, a lot of people, that sort of, cling to these certain beings for an ounce of control to help sort of bring a type of balance into lives that cannot have normally. And so many people that I believe, live in these certain, religions, as we call them, are people that are simply seeking something more, that are seeking security after death. Because that is an aspect of our lives we do not have the proper understanding about. There's a lot of things that lie beyond the grave that we cannot have access to without consulting or speaking with people that have been there and come back, or who still reside in the realm of the spirits and choose to speak to us. Now, the issue is with that point is that, if such a being does exist, then you'd have to assume that it is a being of either a positive or negative affinity, or perhaps it is neutral in its standpoint. Do some spirits exist? Me personally, I would say yes. I believe the whole thought about good and evil on a spectrum is very binary, and to have two forces that are diametrically opposed is sort of a simplistic way of looking at, certain certain events or, certain aspects of one's life. It is something that I personally don't really believe in. I believe spirits are immensely complex creatures. They are driven by their emotions because they are embodiments of emotions, but they have their own personalities. They also have their own identities as well. So when you're trying to, I believe, commune with a spirit on the other side, you have to discern whether or not they are truthful in what they are saying, and that their actions or the emotions that they display coincide with who they are and who they identify as in terms of, being a spirit. And so when we're talking about gods or deities, these are simply spirits that have attained a higher level. Or they could be perhaps the hub of all the spirits put together. For example, and I know I bring this up many times, but many people within this nation, well, across the world, understand this sort of religion very well. So I believe in the Bible, or whatever you choose to call it. It talks about a man who lived around a cemetery that I believe Jesus was going to visit. And this man was said to have been possessed by a legion of spirits, many spirits, but they were acting as one. And it referred to itself as one, but many at the same time. So when Jesus went to approach this being or whatever, it spoke to the mass as one mass, because the spirits have then, they sort of converged into one entity, into one type of spirit. And so it identified itself as being the one, even though it's comprised of many. A similar aspect or thought process would be the Holy Trinity. It is simply three spirits or three aspects of God that are self-identifiable, but they identify as being one person, sort of being one thing, whether or not you believe in that sort of thing. But spirits operate in a similar manner. Spirits aren't like normal bodies of people. Though I believe if I was going to properly, compare the two, I believe I can give you this example. So, on their own, a person identifies itself as being one, okay? However, when you have a bunch of people, a team of people act as a unit, that is on a similar level and comparison, well, yes, or whatever, I don't even know that's even a word, to be honest, but you understand my meaning. It's a lot of people acting as one. People themselves are spirits within vessels, within bodies. They themselves are spirits, they themselves are souls, and they are capable of their own speech, understanding. However, because we do not have the connection to the spiritual realm, there are a lot of things that we ourselves are not aware about. However, in a fundamental level, within our beings, within our spirits, we are able to not only connect with the other realm, but receive the energies to and from, as well as the information. That is why some of us are able to come into contact with spirits on the other side to begin with, because we already have something in common. We have something that is identical to theirs, even though we have developed our own personality living in this realm, in this world. But in regards to things like gods or deities, you have to understand, and this is all theoretical, I don't mean to insult any of you, whether you be witch, whether you be pagan, whether you be atheist, whether you be a follower of a certain dominant religion, you have to understand that the theory of God or gods or goddess is simply the thought that there is a being of immense power, or power that is immense but limited unto a certain scope, that is then able to watch over the energies within you, within the spirits you have after you die. Somebody that has control of something, because you have the idea, the perception that the world is not self-governable, that the world itself is chaotic, and it can be, but the world itself has a type of order. Animals don't just simply lash out and do these crazy things just because they're animals. Animals have a certain rhythm. They have a certain vibe. They have a certain identity. They do things that feel right to them. They themselves are also spirits. However, people would argue, even in my community, that animals are an exception. Why? Because they do not have the identity. They do not have what makes them, I believe, self-aware in terms of, spiritual presence, or I believe having a soul. You can have a spirit but not have a soul. The spirit is believed to be the battery that fuels the body, that allows it to move, but the body itself is not self-aware. It just does things. It's on instinct. It's programmed. That is the idea. However, animals are able to perceive emotions. They're able to feel emotions, things like love, affection, things like fear, things like anger. These are all certain embodiments of what makes that animal the animal. If the animal had no spirit, it wouldn't exactly, live or work. And this is if you believe spirits are even a thing. But if you believe they are, or if you believe energy does exist, and energy within a certain form can have some sort of sentience, you can sort of see where I'm coming from in this perspective. So in terms of God, the second question, I believe, or maybe the first, would be whether or not you believe in God. I myself am a person that, I believe I do believe in a God, but who the God is I believe still up to discovery, And if that God itself is actually as powerful as it claims to be, or it's powerful within a certain realm, within the universe that it is governing, and if there's another God, perhaps unbeknownst to us, that is just as powerful but lives in a different or separate alternate universe. That is the belief system in terms of God, and I use God, neutrally in terms of gender, goddess or God, they don't care what they appear to look like. They can look like anything. God, to me, is a gender neutral term. Goddess, if you want to identify whatever, spirits can, they don't have, they can make a body look like whatever they want. They don't care. They're simply a spirit, genderless, sexless, that live in another dimension, that live in another realm. So, in terms of gods, you have to understand that the God that perhaps you believe in or don't, either has or doesn't have the power that you believe they do. One, I believe I would probably ask or question is whether or not the God you believe in is active, if whether or not the God you believe in actually does anything at all, if the God is reticent, if the God is even present within your realm at any given time. So, for example, there are a lot of religions that claim they believe in the right gods or they believe in the spirits. Spirits are also gods. They go back and forth. Anything that has life or that breathes essentially has a spirit. So by that alone, if something has perished, its spirit could perhaps still be around or be trying to find another vessel to possess or to be within. And so to say that it is wrong to commune with spirits on the other side is, I believe, a fallacy on certain magical aspects, even in terms of religion. To say that there is only one sort of righteous spirit is, I believe, an ignorant statement, because the only way to know that for certain is whether or not the spirit has proven itself to be a positive one and doesn't have anything it's keeping from you that you aren't aware of. But back to my whole thing as to the thought process behind, gods, whether or not they're real or whatever. If you are, for example, doing anything in your life and you are consulting a deity or spirits of some kind and events happen, but what you wanted or what you're hoping for doesn't occur, you can see that as nothing being done in your favor. There are certain people that sort of do things and they claim that it's working, but they give credit to perhaps a being that doesn't deserve it. But because the being itself is a good spirit, or I believe is a benevolent one, it does it just for the sake of doing it because it sees it as a righteous act. And so perhaps the spirit that you are giving, praises to or worship to is perhaps the person you should be devoted to. But because, you've been taught that, or perhaps, you see it as it being that person, then I suppose that spirit gets the credit. Or the spirit that you are praying to, whichever it may be, may adopt that identity in order to, continue doing what it is already doing. What you need to consider also is the fact that, if a deity is real, are they acting on your behalf or their own selfish desires? You have the Greek and Roman gods who are notoriously known for being immensely selfish beings or spirits that don't really do anything for people unless the people prove themselves, yet are able to do whatever they want, start wars, fuck whoever. They do anything that they want, regardless if the person wills it or not. And so they call themselves deity. They have the power. To call these sort of beings benevolent is, I believe, the wrong thing to call them. Someone that is benevolent, that is kind, compassionate, and loving, does things for others before themselves and doesn't seek praise and worship in return. Remember that statement. If you go anywhere and someone's talking to you about the deity and what they demand is worship, they demand everything else. The act of demanding itself is putting yourself in a superior level, telling you that you have to give me this or you get nothing back, or I don't like you. The Greek gods were similar manner. The Egyptian gods were the same way. There were other gods in other cultures that, yes, they sort of accepted things like sacrifices, things like worshiping, but these were also other spirits. Some people call them demons. But, a person that is benevolent or that is kind, there is nothing wrong with, being grateful for thanks or whatever. But a thanks would be fine. And then out of love or compassion for the spirit that helps you, you then offer it something. Either praise, or you burn things, or you offer up sacrifices as a term of, appeasement, or to show that you're loving or whatever. But when you think about the word benevolence, when you think about the word kind, when you think about the word love, in regards to spirits or deities of any kind, you have to consider what makes this deity loving. What actions has it taken to prove it is a deity that promotes love or that promotes understanding, benevolent actions? Or you'd also have to see how it reacts in return to that which opposes it. And so, unfortunately, in certain religions and many across the board, they have been sort of merged with cultural. They have been influenced by religious leaders to attain certain roles, to attain certain levels in society that they deem appropriate. You know, with things like what sort of partners you are supposed to have, children, how many, you know, whether or not you are, you know, someone that is married or choose to be single, or whether or not you're a person that chooses to be a spiritual leader or not, if you are, you know, financially donating or giving to the collective in regards to that religion. All of these certain aspects, you have to analyze all of this. Never pledge yourself to anything, to anyone, without cause, without purpose, without intention. Simply blindly following something that other people believe in and they swear works for them does not mean the same for you. And it is quite ignorant. And certain deities and spirits do not like that sort of thing. Why? Because it is the absence of identity, and that is what they crave. Not only do they have identity in themselves, but they seek other identifiable spirits to show them love and affection. Why? Because they are the embodiment of emotions. You can't just simply do things because other people do them. You have to have your own mind, your own understanding when it comes to deities. Third or second point, I'm not really counting out this part. You have to be careful with who you're pledging yourself to if you're deciding to follow a deity of a certain kind. Deities have been known to be immensely jealous. They have been known to be, demanding, as they all apparently seem to be. And they have certain aspects, or I believe certain things they expect you to do when you're serving them. Okay, to have a deity that believes in a follower's freedom of will is incredibly rare, because when a spirit attains the level of godhood, it is then seeking ways to either attain greater power or to maintain that power. Other spirits will join a more powerful spirit because it ensures not only their survival, but that their energies remain intact and that they can in turn increase their own energy. Spirits sometimes, okay, some spirits act on their own behalf and they are, solitary creatures, but that is rare, and they usually tend to go down a more, dark path or whatever sometimes, because again, they're being led by emotions, by the forces that govern those universes. Anyone by themselves, okay, unless if they thrive being alone, which can happen, and sometimes they do offer some help. But spirits, like people, because we ourselves as spirits seek to be around others like ourselves, seek to be around others that not only accept us, but it can help us grow. Spirits function on a similar manner. And we know that because we ourselves are spirits. That is what we identify here. There's a lot of things you have to consider when speaking about things like gods or goddesses. Is what you are being taught, is what you're learning authentic? Is it really the God it says it is? Has it proven itself in your life? Have you put it through tests? Has it put you through tests? Have you sort of done what you had to do, but the God refuses to deliver? You have to also take that into consideration. If for some reason it cannot deliver despite you giving to this deity, you have to assume that the deity has no power in that aspect and perhaps something else does, or it is a power that cannot be changed because it is aligned within the spirit itself. The spirit itself has its own power. It has autonomous power. It has power that cannot be changed and it cannot be altered, which is why perhaps something within your life cannot also be altered or changed, okay? And unfortunately, this will also come down to the spirit itself. No one can change who they are entirely. That part is woven into your spirit, into the fabric of your being. What you can do is suppress it. What you can do is try to avoid it. However, it still remains and persists within your being. And so, in certain aspects and things of life, if a God does not like what you are in a spiritual, perhaps, physical aspect or whatever, you can do your best to change it, but there is no guarantee that the spirit will accept you regardless of how you are, regardless of how you compose yourself, because it is still within your spirit. It is a mark that cannot be erased. It is coincided with your personality, with your being, and it is evident and proven throughout all of society and throughout all of time. Okay? People can change actions, but the essence of people cannot be changed. It cannot be changed by spirits or gods. Why? Because gods themselves are spirits, and there are certain things that they themselves have no power of changing, regardless of how powerful it is. It doesn't mean that they themselves aren't powerful. It simply means, one, either they see no issue with whatever thing you have, or they don't have the power themselves to change what was created before them. Spirits come from somewhere. Whatever your deity is, whoever your deity is, they may have come from somewhere as well. But when you're trying to dive into these certain practices involving yourselves with deities or gods, you have to take these things into consideration. Now, I will say this. I am going to have to cut it here, but I feel as though I could go on a deeper subject. If you would like that, please let me know in the comments. Let me know if you sort of enjoy these sort of subjects. If it sort of helped you think on a different, more profound level. Take these things into consideration. Think about it carefully. I will probably make a part 2 if I feel as though it is necessary. Remember that I care for you, that Pahalo cares for you, that we as a family on here on Myths and Magic also care for our followers or whatever. If you identify yourself to be a mage, a practitioner of a certain craft, or mundane, or someone that's simply curious about certain subjects, hello and welcome to the fold. Welcome to the coven. Welcome to the collective. We here, we sort of applaud, acceptance, love, but we also seek to challenge ourselves on those levels, intellectually, spiritually, emotionally. Remember to feed your pets, your family, your brothers and sisters. You keep locked in a cage. Remember that, it's important to let out a fart once in a while, because if it gets stuck in you, it can lead to cancer. I'm just joking. But no, it can, no, honestly, let me tell you something. Constipation is a nightmare. If you have anything I have, practice in safety. Make sure you're following the proper guidelines for your craft, for whatever you're doing. Remember that I care for you. And remember that in regards to gods or whatever is believed in, think carefully. And I love you immensely. Goodbye.